What do the NFL playoffs, daily fantasy, and financial planning have to do with one another? More than you might think. So I spend a great deal of time in trying to explain to you Byzantine rules, seem like arcane rules and technical points about financial contracts as a whole, whether that be health insurance, Medicare being a subset, Maximize Your Medicare, there's my book, available on Amazon.com, other financial products as well, dental insurance, annuities, your investment portfolio. There's the entire set of things that I do, meaning putting them all together into a financial plan as a whole. Today, however, we change course. Because maybe you thought that I was just a technician on Medicare, for example. But the reality is Medicare is just one piece of a puzzle, a set of moving parts that can change through time. And as a result, you can understand that if you've watched my other podcasts or watched the other videos, you may see that I've been saying that these topics link together and you must understand certain principles. You can remember a Karate Kid video, right, about financial fluency, where I'm talking about, hey, make sure that we understand the principles correctly. Now, the reality is that a lot of different exercises that look like gambling, or people mislabel as gambling, aren't really, but in fact are. You must start out with some basic idea of your situation, a very good understanding of that, and understand what your objective is, and from those 2 points you then match up what is your particular individual situation, and then fit the financial contracts to your particular lot in life, which will be different than your sister, your brother, your mother, your best friend. We're here on the eve of the most interesting week of the NFL season, which is the divisional playoff weekend. 2 games Saturday, 2 games on Sunday, to decide who will play for the right to play in the Super Bowl in February. Anyway, if you go on ESPN or if you go to any sports website, it's almost inevitable you will see an advertisement for something called Daily Fantasy, otherwise known as DFS. And Daily Fantasy is run by 2 websites, largely known as DraftKings or FanDuel. I'm going to address these particular daily fantasy sites and how they're similar to financial planning and how they are very similar as far as the process and how different it is when you're just trying to dream it up at the coffee shop versus what actual professionals should be doing. Here on your screen is a very well-known daily fantasy contest. And you can see it here because it costs $20. It costs $20. And you can see that first prize is $1 million. This is run every week, as it will be doing this weekend. And you can see this particular contest pays $1 million, and then beyond $43,350, you get 0. These people make their money back. They get 30 when they've paid 20, and the rest get 0. In other words, you can see here that out of 205,000 possible entries, that 43,000 will make money. That means the rest will not. So anyway, what you'll see here is that this is a particular payout structure. Now this is one set. This is the one that gets all the headlines, which is called Tournament. And we will get to a summary of what these contests look like shortly. In addition to that, there is also something called 50-50s and double ups. And here, a very, very different kind of situation. And let's pull it up here, and you can see it here. $25 is the cost. And the first 2,000 places, they get the 25 turns into 50, and the rest get 0. So you can see, actually, there are two different types of contests here. The cash flows are different. And now you can understand why in the Karate Kid video, I'm sitting there with some of the text saying, understand how the cash flows work. Follow the cash flows. Okay? So this is DraftKings, and FanDuel's, largely the same. There are going to be nuances on scoring, etc., etc. So the way the daily fantasy works is you get a budget, and from there you try to fit your team inside a particular budget. So what you first have to do is understand the way that these contests actually work. Now, before we get too far into it, what we're going to do is going to swerve off here for the moment to talk about the average results. Because it's understandable that people believe that this to be pure gambling, completely random, etc. But then when you actually look at their results, which is revealed here on the DraftKings website, average results. Distribution of entry fees and winnings. Well, you can see it right here, and all of a sudden, the actual perception of what this actually is and what the reality is very, very different. The top 1% win 43% of the prizes, 41% over 3 months, 42% over 6 months. In other words, pretty consistently across the board. A huge percent go to only the 1% of DraftKings IDs. Now, it also shows you some other information. And for example, this top 1%, they're used 18% of all the fees, all of the entries. What does that mean? That the only way that this works is that if this top 1% only played the most expensive contest, and they have multiple entries per person. So again, I'm going to show this to you as we go here, which is you can see what the professionals are doing, right? $1 million is a lot of money, obviously, right? And you can see the top 1% are winning most of the money. Not most, but the plurality of the money, the overwhelming plurality of the money, go to the top 1%. And they're also entering much more than their 1% of all the fees. The only way to connect those two dots is what? They're either playing the highest, most expensive contest, and they're playing multiple lineups to fit the multiple possible scenarios, because there's still the randomness of a sporting event. Last point here. If you're not convinced up to now, last point here. So there's an entire cottage industry dealing with building daily fantasy lineups in different sports. And you can see in a good example here, rotogrinders.com here, and let's just go to the NFL homepage. So if we go to the NFL homepage here, you'll see, in addition to the Maximize Your Medicare channel and podcast, you'll see this one right here. And we'll just call it DFS OGs. Well, I told you that there was $1 million per week. This person right here called Chop, right here, he's won $1 million twice in 2 years. Twice. Okay, not once, twice. So the idea that this is just purely random just cannot be the case. Just cannot be the case. So while there's randomness involved, a certain set of structures has been used successfully by a particular person in that instance To get $1 million once is a once in a lifetime. To get it twice in a row, year after year, the only possible conclusion is that there must be something different going on. Let's continue. So I've described to you the different types of contests. And you can see the Millionaire Maker and the Double Up. Okay. Millionaire Maker is called the tournaments. And you could have seen from that list that I showed you that the payout was heavily weighted towards the top. And on the second type of contest, 50% win and the rest lose. So you can see what ends up happening as it goes to your lineup. So under daily fantasy, what happens is you choose what? You choose a quarterback. You choose 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a flex position, which is across anyone except for quarterback, and a tight end, and a defensive team and special teams. Okay? And you have to all fit it within the budget. The point here is that because of the way the payout structure works, that affects the lineups. And on this website over here, which is the Daily Fantasy Podcast, you'll hear them talk. You'll hear the professionals talk. They do this for a living. About the way that they're setting up the lineups differently based on the type of payout. Based on the type of payout, the different lineups get set. And let's just take a quick look at an example. So in the Millionaire Maker, because of the fact that it's so heavily weighted towards the top 1%, you're trying to get into the 1%. What does that imply about your solution? Right? Given that that's the payout, you need to match your pieces into a selection set that will match the payout. So what are they doing? They're looking for outliers. Meaning third string running back who has a particular skill and is going to particularly match that scenario to do a once in a lifetime game. They're looking for correlations. What does that mean? Quarterback to wide receiver combination. Or they're looking for particular games that they think are going to be very attractive. Shootouts. Right? They're looking for a high scoring game so that their lineup can outperform all the other contestants. You can see in 50-50, very, very different. Because of the fact that the payout is 50-50, 50% win, 50% lose, or only a subset doubles their money and the rest lose, they need to just beat the average person. So what do they want? Unlike the tournament where you're looking intentionally for outliers, here you don't want the outlier. So while you want the highest projection of anticipated points, you don't really want to be searching for lightning in a bottle, because lightning in the bottles don't always occur. So you can understand what you're trying to do. You're trying to get the highest average, right? Projected average, when you know that you can accept that somebody's going to have a bad game, or there's weather involved or something else. But you'll see that what happens is that definitely affects the type of lineup that you will deploy. And from there, you can see the difference between the way the professionals are handling this and what I'm doing, which is an amateur spending $1 to $3 a week. So you can see in professionals of what they're doing here. Because of, remember, I showed you that grid before. You can remember this over here, which is that 1% are 18% of the entry fees. The only possible conclusion is that since multiple scenarios exist, the professionals are making multiple lineups. Has to be. Second, since multiple scenarios exist and there's 2 sets of games, let's just call it 1 o'clock game and 4 o'clock game, right? Let's just say, for example, a lineup did very well in this particular type of structure, did very, very well or poorly, that you may adjust during the day. And this is called late swap. So yes, you will hear that people are adjusted, so that the professionals are switching somebody in the 4 o'clock game that they may have chosen, but because of the way that things have worked out, because of the contest that they're involved in, they may make changes to their lineup even on a Sunday. That happens. Now, even from there, you can see what happened, and you can see I did not put these in order. I should have put this one kind of, after multiple lineups. Is that since they're not running one lineup only, they're running many. We already have the evidence that I showed you. So the idea that somebody's just putting in a single $20 entry to try to win $1 million, okay, that's what the recreational person does. That's not what the professionals are doing, right? They're running simulations and optimizers. And how do you know this? More evidence over here, which is back to rotogrinders.com, and you'll see it under NFL, and you can see player projections, ownership. In other words, they're looking for combinations of players to fit in the budget and yet get the highest possible outcome from the information that they have before the event. Well, how is this different than in my Life's a Gamble video? The difference between the way that Mr. Perfect would think about health insurance compared to the way that Jabba the Hutt would think about health insurance. Not that different, right? Mr. Perfect is never sick. Jabba the Hutt is 900 pounds, relying on 100 units of insulin a day. Health insurance costs the same because they're the same age and they live across the street from each other. The way they evaluate that contract, that particular slice of their financial planning lineup, would be notably different. Ooh, this is important. So I'm going to stop. I split the clip here because I know that I've forgotten something, and here it is. Because of the fact you've got Mr. Perfect and Jabba the Hutt with such different circumstance and, thoughts about health insurance, it explains why the rest of this channel. It explains why I have to talk about annuity, life insurance, long-term care, portfolio, financial planning. The idea that one party, some politician, some partisan special interest, person comes out and tries to throw a blanket statement and say, this is junk, this is universally good, this is the way the world should work, that contract is universally bad. I reject almost all of it. All of it. Because what is trash to Jabba the Hutt is treasure to Mr. Perfect. And vice versa. And in the similar way here under this exercise, under this daily fantasy exercise, that player over there, the third string running back who happens to only do well in mud, may look like universally bad, unless millionaire maker in a tsunami. Now all of a sudden makes complete sense. Same thing for financial products. In the same way, here you can see it. Because the likely payouts is so different, it changes the lineup. And the professionals, they adjust. They adjust to the time. Compared to what amateurs like me do, right? I'm turning it on just so that I can watch the Red Zone channel and yell at the TV, right? Single lineup, hand built. Compared to this to multiple lineups and then simulating. Right? So even me, I know how they're looking at these different lineups and what the professionals are doing, and that tells you why I don't spend the $20. right? Because I already understand that, hey, this stuff stacked up against you, all these things against you that the professionals are doing, am I going to be able to compete as a single hand-built lineup? The answer is no. Therefore, I adjusted my accepted price accordingly, $1 to $3. Okay? So let's just go to an actual example because there's an additional twist. So we can go here and let's just build a lineup, and I've done it here. And this is the $3 contest, and you'll see it. So this is the $3 tournament. It's not the millionaire maker, but you can see you can choose a quarterback and a running backs, wide receivers, and fit in a $50,000 salary. So let's just say I'm going to take a quarterback and I use my filtering system that I discussed earlier. So we're looking for the highest scoring game and then possible correlations. So yes, in fact, that's what they end up doing. And then the professionals running bunches of simulations. So let's just take my simple example and let's just say that we think that Baltimore versus Buffalo is going to be the highest scoring game. A shootout, a possible shootout. Other people are going to say Cleveland versus Kansas City. Almost no one is choosing, the Rams versus Green Bay, for example, as far as a shootout goes. But let's just take one of these two, and let's just call it Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens versus Josh Allen. Well, because we can remember, since I'm trying to get the highest score and yet get the outliers, what I'm trying to do, maybe I'm going to choose Josh Allen. Well, who's Josh Allen going to throw to? Well, let's just go to wide receivers. And of course, for people who follow the NFL, it'll most likely be, where are we? Stephon Diggs. So now you can see, for example, though they've been assigned a particular salary, we're going to have to fit all the other players within 35, the remaining salary. It's not clear. We're going to have to make tough choices. We're going to have to make tough choices with a given budget. How's this different than financial planning? You see what I'm saying here in Stephon Diggs. So now we've got this other issue. Because you can see that this is, kind of intuitive in the sense that any fan of the NFL that have watched the Buffalo Bills understand that Josh Allen wants to throw to Stephon Diggs. He's the, leading receiver on the team. However, if you look over here, what ends up happening is kind of a conflict. Because what you can have is, we don't want outliers. Maybe it's better for cash and not as good for outliers. Why? So let's just say, take the tournament, Millionaire Maker. Since you're looking for the outlier, and yet you think that this game is going to be the most high scoring, maybe, in fact, it's not Stephon Diggs. Why? Because of the fact you're trying to beat all of the other people, and the average person going to be gravitating towards Stephon Diggs. And because of that, you're intentionally keeping away from it. You know how that's a factor in here? You can see over here, back to FanDuel's. Not surprisingly, projected ownership is one of the tabs. Here's the page behind their paywall. In other words, what they are doing here is trying to give you a projection towards the number of people that are going to be taking Josh Allen. They're just showing you a single example here. And maybe you've concluded, hey, as a result, I can't have Josh Allen. It's too highly owned. I can't distinguish my portfolio of my lineup compared to others given the payout structure. So you can see, even in this very simple example here, Josh Allen may be entirely fine down here because you don't necessarily want the outlier. But in Millionaire Maker, because the payout is so different, maybe you have to take a riskier quarterback for someone with lower projected ownership, so that your lineup distinguishes itself compared to your other contestants. And on we go. And you can see it. Again, let's just take, as a result, maybe we're not using Stefan Diggs at all, but in fact, maybe we're going down further here to a cheaper and lesser known Cole Beasley, John Brown, maybe. So for tournament, for example, maybe it is Josh Allen to a Bills wide receiver that is not Stefan Diggs. It's just a simple example, and on we'll go until we fill in the rest of the lineup. So you can see what I'm saying is the fundamental difference, which is over here, amateurs, what we do, the average person, what do we do? Build a single lineup and just do it by hand. Well, you can see what the professionals are doing. They're running simulations using these data, these different inputs that I'm showing you from roto grinders, for example. And then they're building simulations of different possible lineups that would fit under each different type of contest. What have they done? They've run simulations to match the lineup to the payout. Match the lineup to the payout. Now you can understand how similar this is to financial planning and why today's video, a video that I've tried to roll out here right in the past. You can see some very slight introduction between myself and my nephew Oscar, who does not have a driver's license, but the simple logic to someone who is unbiased without, baggage of life to carry with him. Oscar, not an average child, no, not by any means, but by the same token, just common sense and logic, meaning that you can see it here, which is that since the payout's different, then your lineup is different. In a similar type of way, financial planning, Mr. Perfect versus Jabba the Hutt have a very different personal situation. They need to have different payouts under different situations. What does that mean? They're valuing certain financial contracts differently, as long as it fits their budget. Very similar to the way that we are going to be building a DFS lineup. Last point here, which is this kind of thing, like I said, you would think that this is going to be pure gambling. In the same way, the thing is, you can see it because of the fact that this is a simulator and optimizer, and that is the way the professionals are handling it. That doesn't mean there isn't randomness involved. Otherwise this thing would read, 100% of the winnings. Right? But it's very important to distinguish that you don't get to say, okay, well, it was a time that the top 1% didn't win, therefore the top 1% is wrong. We get this in our society all the time. The weatherman's always wrong. Economists don't know what they are doing. These experts aren't using the science of estimation. Now you have a third example about the distortions when people don't actually understand what's going on behind the curtain. Hope you enjoyed today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have. I'm trying to give you these different iterations because I understand that financial fluency seems like some unattainable end, or that the logic, the reasoning is from another planet. It's not different. It's not different. Lots of different fields use these similar types of projecting, but with the knowledge that the outcome is not a slam dunk certainty. From that, there's randomness involved. That's very different than the definition of gambling. I'm Jay. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you again. Talk to you the next time.